Today we have three true stories, but they are stranger than fiction. Stories you will hear and will think they are fictional, but they are 100% real and documented with photos and videos. Before we start our episode today, if everyone watching this channel for the first time, if you love true, terrifying, dark, and mysterious stories that make you laugh at the sheer size of the stories, then you are in the right place. Please subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell on all notifications so you can receive our new videos as soon as they are released. As for the little secret that was in the episode before the last one, not the one that came out, the one who knew this secret and got the most likes is Alaa Eldin Goma. Congratulations, Alaa, and I salute you for your intense focus. Today you are the star of our episode, and if you want to be the star of the next episode, focus on this episode from beginning to end, and try to discover the little secret in it, and of course, the one who discovers it first is the one whose comment gets the most likes, and we will announce his name in the next episode. Okay, everyone, focus. Let's start with our stories, God willing. Music. Laughter. Music. How are you guys doing? May you always be well. At 5:15 p.m. on June 28, 1980, a 38-year-old man named Robert Davidson. The motorcycle driver was driving on Interstate 74 in an area called Acton, Indiana, a small area near Indianapolis. His wife, Wanda, was riding behind him. She had her arms around his waist. They were on their way to visit his family. They wanted to arrive as quickly as possible, not because they were excited about the visit, but because a big storm was approaching, and they wanted to arrive quickly before the rain started to fall. The sky above them began to darken and turn a dark gray. It looked terrifying. Robert started to speed up a little to catch up, but suddenly large drops of rain started hitting his arm. He realized that the rain was starting to fall, and he had to stop to put on his and his wife's rain jackets. Robert stopped on the side of the road, and his wife, Wanda, stepped on it. He was about to get off the motorcycle to open a small bag at the back of the motorcycle to take out his jackets, but before he could do so, a flash of lightning suddenly flashed, and then he felt terrible pain all over his body. His muscles suddenly tensed, and he fell off the motorcycle to the ground. Everything around him turned black. Less than 5 minutes later, the ambulance arrived, and several paramedics got out, including one named Kimberly Cobb. Kimberly had received a report that a man and his wife were on Highway 74 and that the man had been struck by lightning. As soon as she arrived at the scene, she found Robert lying on the ground, not moving, his face gray, and he looked like a wax statue. Wanda was standing next to him, collapsed and crying uncontrollably. Kimberly immediately got down next to him and started looking for a pulse, but unfortunately, there was none. From this, she knew she had very few minutes to live. She saved him, and then she started to stabilize his spine. Quickly, at the same moment, one of her colleagues began to perform CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, on him. A third paramedic used the ambulance's radio to quickly request a helicopter ambulance to transport him to the hospital. The helicopter crew responded and said they were on their way, but before they could complete any communication on the radio, suddenly the entire ambulance turned off. The lights went out, the sirens sounded, and everything went silent. This was a huge problem for them. To be more precise, it was a disaster because there was important equipment in the car that ran on electricity, and they needed it to keep Robert alive until the helicopter arrived. When the electricity was cut off, this equipment was no longer needed. The biggest disaster was the ambulances, designed to never shut down, even if any problem occurs. It has two batteries, one main and one backup. If the main battery is shut down, the backup battery will immediately take over. How can they both shut down at the same time? No one understood. Before Kimberly or any of the paramedics could think about what had happened, something much stranger happened. They found a woman wearing a long black dress running towards them from a distance on the road, holding a book in her hands and screaming loudly. She gestured to them. "Let's touch him." "Let me touch him. I can save him." The paramedics stared at each other, stunned. Who was this woman? Where did she come from like that? Wanda didn't know them either. The whole situation was terrifying and confusing. Robert was practically dead. There was no pulse. There was nothing they could do because the equipment was out and the helicopter wasn't working. There was no pulse. There was nothing they could do. Because the equipment was out and the helicopter still hadn't shown any signs of it. What happened next was that they all stood still, letting the woman get closer because they had nothing they could do. The woman arrived, knelt next to Robert, and began performing very strange rituals. At first, she began praying in a quiet voice while holding the book in her hands and concentrating very much. Kimberly, Wanda, and all the paramedics were standing there, unable to understand anything. Then, the woman began to get angry and slammed the book in her hands on the ground several times, raising her head to the sky, screaming, "Save him now! Save him now!" Her screams became louder and louder, and her face changed. She felt as if she were possessed, and she raised the book above her head. She began speaking in a strange language, words she couldn't understand. There was another voice speaking to her tongue, Kimberly, and the rest of the paramedics were shocked by the scene. Their hearts were about to stop from the horror. They wanted to stop this woman from what she was doing, but they knew that Robert was dead anyway, so they let her continue what she was doing. But suddenly, the woman stopped everything. Very calmly, she turned around and walked down the road in the same direction she had come from. At the same moment, the ambulance disappeared from their sight, all the lights and warning lights came on. The engine returned to normal, and Robert started breathing. Everyone stood in shock. This man had been dead for minutes, and there had been no real medical intervention. How did he start breathing again before anyone could comprehend what had happened? The helicopter arrived and took Robert, his wife Wanda, and Kimberly and everyone else away. The paramedics stood on Highway 74, unable to believe what had happened next when they returned. They looked in the direction the woman had gone, but there was no sign of her. The whole place was a long, open road and a very wide field. There was not a single tree or anything to hide in. Even if someone walked there, no matter how far away, they would have spotted him. But the woman disappeared. After a while, they searched the area. They discovered that the land around the accident site had a strange secret. They discovered that the land where the woman had disappeared had once been a religious village called Acton Campground. The people who lived in the area back in the 19th century were famous for their loud voices during prayer and for speaking in incomprehensible languages during prayer. The village burned down completely in 1864. After it was discovered again, it burned down again in 1905. Since then, it has never been rebuilt again. Its location was turned into an empty, open field. That's why this strange incident happened. For Robert, people began to say that the woman who saved Robert might be the ghost of one of the villagers who had returned to save someone who was on the verge of death. Because her sudden appearance and the way she disappeared from the scene of the accident had no other explanation, other than that she was a ghost. From the day she appeared, this woman in 1980 until today has never appeared again, nor has anyone known who she is. On a cold night in February 2011, a man in his 30s named Yang was sitting having dinner in his simple house in an isolated rural village in China. Around him at the table were 5 elderly women whom he called his aunts. He lived with them and served them. The whole scene at the table was silent. Not a single word was spoken, and no one spoke. All of this was normal and not strange to them, because Yang originally loved quiet. Yang had a disability that made his speech similar to impossible. He was also blind in one eye and had been bullied and ridiculed his entire life because of his condition. This made him hate dealing with people and not like talking or sitting in a crowd. But amidst all of this, the only people who accepted and loved him for who he really was were his 5 aunts. It didn't matter to them that he couldn't speak, and they loved him just the way he was and considered him their son. Yang felt very comfortable with them and was very proud to be taking care of them at their age. The eldest felt that this was his role and that he had to be a support for them. After a quiet dinner as usual, Yang cleaned the tables and helped one of his aunts go to her room and sleep. After covering her head, he went to help the second one. But suddenly he heard the sound of a police siren from outside. Yang had lived his entire life in a very pure village, to the point that there were no police there at all, and he himself had never. He saw and had never heard a police car in his life, so out of curiosity, instead of continuing and helping his other aunt, he ran to see what was going on. He climbed the hill his house was on and looked down at it. From a distance,